Se-eun loved the sea. But not the ordinary blue sea that people often dream of. No, the sea she loved was red. Deep, crimson red. No one really understood what that meant, but to her, it was a feeling. A strange beauty mixed with danger, like the stories she kept inside her mind. There was something different about Se-eun. Whenever she felt anxious or lost in her thoughts, she would scratch her hands until they bled. It was a habit she couldn't stop. Her arms often bore small scars, silent witnesses of the storms in her mind. But Se-eun had more than just inner storms. She had a gift, or a curse. When she held a murder weapon at a crime scene, it was as if she could see what had happened. The fear, the rage, the final moment. She didn't see it like a movie. She felt it, as if she were there. Sometimes, when she stood near a body, she would talk, not to the dead, but to those around her. The killer didn't do this in anger, she would say. They wanted the victim to feel it. Slowly, painfully. Her colleagues often looked at her in silence, unsure whether to be amazed or alarmed. One day, while examining a particularly brutal case, Se-eun spoke again. He must have slowed down his movements. He wanted the sensation to travel through his hand, to feel the moment of death with each finger. The detective beside her turned sharply. How do you know that? She looked at him. Quiet, still. For a moment, it felt like she wasn't just describing the killer. She was remembering something. But Se-eun didn't flinch. She didn't deny it. She didn't explain, because sometimes, the truth doesn't need words. It shows itself, in how you look at a body, in how you hold a knife, in how your hands shake afterward. And for Se-eun, who loved the Red Sea, the truth was never far away. Se-eun stood in the small, cold room with a man sitting across from her. He was grinning, not kindly, but with mockery, like someone watching a game he thought he had already won. His arms were crossed, his voice calm. He wasn't scared. He didn't believe for a second that she could touch him. But Se-eun didn't back down. You laughed, she said, tilting her head. Why? The man's smirk widened. Because this is ridiculous. You're chasing shadows. Se-eun didn't blink. Was it fun? What? She leaned forward, her voice low. Hurting them. Slowing down your movement, so the pain could travel to your fingertips. Feeling it, completely. That's what you said, right? The room went silent. The man stopped smiling. He stared at her, stunned. You, he began, but stopped. Se-eun looked directly at him. You did it, didn't you? Suddenly, his calm cracked. He stood up sharply, eyes blazing. You're crazy. But Se-eun remained seated, unshaken. Detective, she called out without turning. The door opened. You can arrest him now. He's the one. The detective stepped in, confused. Are you sure? She nodded, then pointed to the weapon lying on the table. That's his. It belongs to him. The man growled, you don't have proof. But Se-eun stood and calmly walked toward the door. I don't need proof when the truth already slipped from your mouth. As she exited, her expression remained unreadable. To her, the hardest part wasn't proving someone's guilt. It was listening to them pretend they were innocent. Because deep down, she already knew. She always knew. And that terrified people more than anything else, not because she could accuse them, but because she could see them. The Red Sea in her mind rippled again, quietly. Another killer caught. Another story closed. But the waves never rested. Morning arrived in Yongcheon, a quiet city with quiet streets, but beneath the stillness, something dangerous was stirring. Two detectives sat inside an old car, parked on a narrow side road. The windows were slightly fogged. One of them stared intently at a building across the street. The other was complaining. Of all the cars in the world, why do we have to get the one without a heater? Grumbled Detective Jang. He rubbed his hands together, breath turning white in the cold air. "We're here to work," replied Detective Min, his eyes still fixed ahead. "I am working," Jang muttered, pushing open the door. "I'm just going to find something warm to eat. Want anything?" Min shook his head, annoyed but used to this. At a nearby supermarket, Jang found a small cup of instant soup and started eating it near the glass entrance. He wasn't expecting action, not today. But just then, something caught his eye. A kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old, was standing near the candy aisle, trying to sneak a bar of chocolate into his coat pocket. The boy didn't notice Jang watching. "Seriously?" Jang whispered, eyebrows raised. He finished his soup, walked over, and gently grabbed the boy by the arm. "Come on, kid." Moments later, Jang returned to the car and opened the back door, guiding the boy inside. Min turned to him, stunned. "What are you doing?" "He stole chocolate," Jang answered casually. "You're joking." "No, I'm taking him to the station. He needs to learn stealing isn't okay." Min scoffed. "It's chocolate, Jang. We're not here for candy patrol. We're on a stakeout." They argued for a minute, their voices rising. But while they were busy disagreeing, someone else was watching them, a man in a black hat. He stood near the corner, staring at their car longer than anyone should. Min noticed him. "That guy," he whispered, suddenly alert. "Isn't that the one we've been looking for?" Before Jang could respond, the man in the hat turned and ran. Without hesitation, both detectives leapt out of the car and gave chase. The stakeout had just turned into a pursuit. The man in the black hat dashed through the narrow streets of Yongcheon. His steps were fast and wild, cutting corners, pushing past morning walkers, knocking over a basket of apples from a vendor's cart. Detective Min was right behind him, running hard. His coat flapped wildly in the wind. His breath turned to steam as the cold morning air hit his lungs. Jang followed a few steps behind, panting, regretful about finishing a hot soup just minutes before. Min's eyes were fixed on the man. "Stop," he shouted, but the man didn't even slow down. Then, it happened. As Min sprinted across the road, a car turned the corner too fast. The driver slammed the brakes, but it was too late. Min was hit. He tumbled onto the pavement, hard. The sound made Jang freeze for a second. "Min!" he yelled, rushing to his partner. But Min was already pushing himself up, blood on his lip and dirt on his coat. "I'm fine," he growled and took off running again. Pain shot through his leg, but he didn't care. He had to catch that man. Minutes later, the chase ended in an alley. The suspect had vanished. Min stood there, breathing heavily, his fists clenched. He slammed the wall beside him in frustration. Jang finally caught up. "You okay?" Min didn't answer. He just stared down the alley, angry at himself. "I let him get away." Back at the station, silence hung in the air like fog. Min sat at his desk, holding an ice pack to his bruised shoulder. He replayed the moment in his mind, the man's face, the way he moved, how he knew exactly when to run. "I should have caught him," he muttered. Meanwhile, at the forensics lab, Se-eun stood over a body on the table. She examined the neck, her fingers pressing lightly. She leaned closer, checking the bruising around the throat and jaw. Then she looked at the report again. "This wasn't a hit and run," she said quietly. "What?" her assistant asked. Se-eun stepped back, removing her gloves. The neck was broken before the car ever touched him. He didn't die from the accident. She turned to her assistant, her voice firm. "Someone killed him. And blamed the road." Back at the forensics lab, Se-eun typed quietly at her desk, eyes locked on the screen. The autopsy results were clear. The man had died from a snapped neck, not from any car crash. Whoever claimed responsibility was lying. She clicked open a new report, this time about a celebrity. A breaking news alert had arrived earlier that morning. Famous actor accused of using illegal drugs. Her lab had received the toxicology samples. The press was already circling like sharks. But no results had come in yet. Still nothing? She asked without looking up. Her assistant stood nearby, hesitant. No, the toxicology department hasn't sent back the report. Se-eun turned toward her, brows furrowed. Why not? They said. Delays. Maybe tomorrow. That's not good enough, Se-eun said firmly. I want the results by tomorrow morning. Her assistant hesitated. Are you going to the police station again? Or the crime scene? There was tension in her voice, the kind that came from watching Se-eun walk into places where she wasn't always welcome. You know how they talk, she added. They're getting tired of seeing you around. Se-eun gave a faint, tired smile. She knew what people said. That she was too involved. That she wasn't just a forensic scientist anymore. That she crossed lines that kept lab coats away from blood-stained alleyways. But to her, the truth didn't care about job titles. If she had to stand in a police station again to speak up, she would. If she had to walk the edge of what was allowed, she'd do it, as long as it meant getting closer to what really happened. She glanced at the screen again, where the actor's photo stared back at her, half smiling in a magazine shoot. Prepare for retesting, she said. Her assistant blinked. Retesting? If they try to delay again, we'll do it ourselves. And if they refuse, she stood, grabbing her coat. I'll wait in toxicology myself. The assistant watched her leave, half admiring, half worried. Se-eun was never the type to wait for answers. She chased them, even when it meant standing alone. And somewhere deep inside her, the Red Sea was stirring again.